We're reading from Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. This is from the NIV. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God.
Hebreos capítulo 12, verso 1 y 2. Por tanto, nosotros también, teniendo en derredor nuestro tan grande nube de testigos, despojémonos de todo peso y del pecado que nos asedia, y corramos con paciencia la carrera que tenemos por delante. Puesto los ojos en Jesús, el autor y consumador de la fe, el cual por el gozo puesto delante de él sufrió la cruz, menospreciando el oprobio, y se sentó a la diestra del trono de Dios. Amén.
I want to give you a special invitation. This Saturday at 8:30, if you would like to join us, as many as come, we're going to meet across the street at the Sequoia Elementary, and we're going to have a day of, or not a day, we're going to have a season of prayer. It'll last about 30 minutes. And we're going to pray for the students, pray for the year, pray for the certainly the faculty, the administration. And we did this last year. This is being done citywide. And as you guys are very aware, we live in challenging times. And if you teach, one of the things that you have to be concerned about is history of violence in our schools. Another thing you have to be concerned about is that schools have become the battleground of agendas and trying to present to children things that often are way beyond the scope of what their lives are. And so many have gotten together and decided that it would be a good thing to just spend, before the school year starts, some time in prayer on behalf of all of that. And if you have a heart for that, would you first let Wister and myself know that you would like to be a part of that, so we can make appropriation for that. And we're going to meet, like I say, at 8:30 across the street, right where we don't go into the building, right their entryway. They have some seating there, and we will spend some time in prayer. I also need one volunteer, a man that can. I was going to kind of head this thing up, but this Saturday is going to be a memorial service for my uncle, my mom's youngest brother. It's the last of the Brown family. He passed away, and his memorial's in Waco, Texas on Saturday, so I'm going to need to be there. And what that representative would do is you would meet at 8 o'clock at the high school. That's where all of the folks that are leading these groups are meeting. Then you would come over and join our group at 8:30 and just kind of give an opportunity for an opening prayer, and then separate the men and women so everyone can pray. One of the things that we did last year that went over very, very well with the school, and you know we've had a really good working relationship with the school over the years. But one of the things that we did, and Worcester this week is going to get a list of all the teachers, administration, everybody. And with those that came and prayed, we gave to them slips of paper that for the rest of the year, you could be praying for those individuals. And we let those people know that you're going to be prayed for all year. And it was very meaningful to them to know that you've got some prayer warriors that are on your side that are trying to defeat the enemy and just allow you to do your job, which is to educate a very precious children. If you would like to be a part of that, like I said, it'll be about 30 minutes of your time, 8:30 this Saturday. If you would like to lead that up, let me know, and I can give you a little bit more information about that. I have this is real close to my heart because obviously education is very important to me, but I carry a burden for those who have to deal with all the extra pressures on top of just trying to do their job. It's like Lori was saying about retiring, that, you know, when you're trying to teach language and now everybody's confused about pronouns. And how do you teach pronouns when pronouns are now a battlefield of he, she, and et cetera? And it really impressed upon me the challenge of facing. If you'd like to be a part of that, please let us know so we can plan for you being there, and then plan on joining at 8:30 across the street. As you can see from the opening picture here, the title of this message, Too Many Off-Ramps. And the allusion here is to the fact that, as you're well aware, where you end up in life is going to be determined by the path that you choose. But it's not just choosing the path, it is staying on the path. And sometimes that's more difficult than the path that you choose. The metaphor of a road or a way is throughout Scripture, because it really illustrates that fact, that narrow is the way, broad is the way, that the way that you choose, the road, the path that you choose, is going to determine to a great extent where you end up and your success. John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus answered and said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really knew me, you would know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. He's making himself metaphorically the road. No one gets to God unless they get on the road that I am, and obviously stays faithful to that. Psalm 25, verse 4, show me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. It's critical to be on the right path. It's critical to stay on the right path. Job 24, there are those who rebel against the light, who do not know its ways or stay in its paths. Jeremiah 6:16, this is what the Lord says. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. It's where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. But you said, we will not walk in it. Jeremiah is saying, stand at a crossroads. This is a great metaphor because we're going to talk about how complicated this notion of a crossroads has become. And if you think about 150 years ago, if you went into just about any town in the United States, there would be a crossroads. Generally, you had a main street going through town, people, horses going back and forth, and at some point, sometimes in the middle, sometimes at one end or the other of the town, there would be a road that went to the next town. And horses and carriages would use that road, but your issue was you could only make your decision as quickly or slowly as your horse would walk. So you had time to figure out being on the right road, taking the right road, and generally there were not all that many choices. Now if you think about a road, and I want to go from roads to kind of our highway system because we all have to deal with that from time to time, and it's becoming more of a challenge. You guys remember not long ago when we took away the Y and put a circle, and so many people were saying, why circle? See what I did there? You remember how confusing that was to many people to try to figure out? Do you realize how confusing it still is to many people if you try to navigate it? Do I yield? Do I not? Do I go? Do I not go? Changes like that, very, very disruptive. There was a time, and pretty much generally is often the case, if you're going to exit the road, you have to watch for your exit. You've got to watch for the sign. You've got to proactively exit. You got to plan to leave the road. You've got to get in the proper lane to leave the road. If you just keep going, you're going to stay on the road. You've got to proactively do something. Then became the advent of this lane exits. Don't you love those? Don't you love those in cities where they give you a lane and then they take it away? And this lane ends, and there'll be a sign with a big yellow ribbon, lane ends, or must exit. Now this is, you've got to proactively avoid that. You see, if you're in that right lane and you just keep going, you will not end up at your destination because your lane is going to be taken away from you. Actually, it's going to be diverted. This lane exits. If you want to keep going, you can't stay here. And see, this is counterintuitive. I've got on the road. I'm headed where I want to head. Yes, but you can't stay on that road or you'll end up on a different road. Here's one that it seems like every lane must exit. Now, if you're new to that, it's confusing because you've got to do something. You can't just get on the road and stay there, or you're going to end up somewhere that you didn't plan on going to. Good luck with this one. If you're new there, where do I go? There is an exit off 44 in Oklahoma City to take you to 44. Did you hear what I just said? There's an exit from Interstate 44 to take you from 44 to Interstate 44. If you're headed up Interstate 44 from I-40, say, and you do not exit onto 44, you will no longer be on 44. Now let's go back 200 years in time. You're riding your horse through a western town, and there's a crossroads. And Jeremiah talked about a crossroads. You either go straight or you proactively turn left or right. If you turn left, you're probably going to end up in a town a few miles away. If you turn right, you can end up in a different town a few miles away. If you keep going, you will go toward the town of your choice, what you originally chose, unless you proactively turn. It's not difficult. Now, you're not going 70 miles an hour. You only have 1 horsepower. So you've got time to think, you've got time to plan, you've got time to figure out, you've got time to unfold an old map and figure out, am I on the right road and am I going to the right road? It amazes me that you can be on I-44 and you have to exit I-44 in order to continue on I-44. And it confuses a lot of people, especially folks who've never been to Oklahoma City. Now, guys, when we're talking about old paths, we're talking about faithfulness to God. I want to remind us, there's nothing, in terms of sin, there's nothing new under the sun. There are no new sins, okay? So if you're walking in the light and you're pursuing goodness, you're doing the same thing that anybody who has pursued God has done throughout history. But there is a change. There are increasing accesses to sin. The sin itself hasn't changed, but if you will, the off-ramps, off the way, off the road, off the higher calling, there's been a multiplicity of added off-ramps. Some of those off-ramps are signed as off-ramps. Some of them are just, if you stay in this lane, you will leave this path. This lane is ending. Sometimes you will find this road is ending, and you've got to take a different path. So what's changing is how many accesses to sin and the multiplicity of the technologies of sin, if you will. Increasingly, all you have to be is passive to find sin. As our kids were growing up, we had one computer in our house, and it was in our family room. And the idea was that out in public, there is much less chance of finding something that you needn't find. And I'll never forget our son. He was about third or fourth grade. And he was working there at the computer, and that was their family room and where we all congregated. And we were talking, and this is the day when there was the introduction of pop-ups. Y'all remember pop-ups? You're trying to do something. I mean, we take them for granted now, but it would take almost your whole screen. And he said, "Dad, look." He was playing a game, and there was a pop-up, and he said, "Dad, look, free prawn." And I said, "Son, that's not prawn. That says free porn." He thought we were going to get seafood free. Bless his pure little heart. But all he would have had to do is click on that pop-up. And you know what he would have been introduced to. That's passivity. All you have to be is passive, and it will come to you. Guys, I think about, we could use all kinds of examples of this. If I had wanted to gamble when I was young, now I could always get together with friends and we could play gambling games or things like that, but I mean really gamble. I lived in a culture that was oriented toward preventing me from doing that. I would have had to go way out of my way. I would have had to use deception to do real gambling, of say, gambling on horses or gambling on a football game or whatever. Didn't even know how to access the people. Didn't know what a bookie was, much less how to find one to bet on horse racing. You see, culture made it very difficult to find out how to do that, because the idea was we need to protect our kids from gambling. We need to protect them from pornography. We need to protect them from false truth, fake news. We need to protect our children because these things can harm them. I remember talking with my son. We used to walk around. There was a small lake in Chickasha, and I would pick him up after school. We would walk around the lake. We would just talk. And I was talking to him about, he was about 12 or 13 at the time, and we were talking about sexual sin and sexual temptation and all that. And I shared with him, son, when I was growing up, if I wanted to see an X-rated movie, there was a theater in Dallas that showed, it was a drive-in theater, and it showed X-rated films. If I had wanted to see one, listen to what I would have had to do. First, in the dark, I would have to go through a wooded cemetery to get to it. Once I got to it, there was a fence that was about 25 feet high because there was an interstate that went not far from that. I would have had to climb up this fence, some of which was chain link and some of which was corrugated tin siding. And while I'm climbing that, I would have to avoid the watchman, the security guard that walked with a German Shepherd dog to prevent guys like me from trying to get a peek of things that I'm not supposed to see. That's what I would have had to do to see an X-rated movie. All you have to do is click your phone. Now, I'm saying that to you because, thank goodness, our phones were still dumb when he was that small. But the access of cable TV, the access, it was just all there. And the access through, and it was amazing. They did everything in the Chickasha schools to prevent kids from being able to go in the library and hack it. And the first thing the kids learned how to do is how to hack the computers in the library. Kids will be kids. But the difference between what I would have had to do versus what he doesn't have to do in order for it to come to him, it's much more aggressive. Guys, if I had wanted to gamble, there was no such thing as online gambling. There were no online casinos, much less casinos, period. When I was young, I would have had to go to Las Vegas, and they wouldn't let me in. Now you can do it online. Now there are gambling apps. Now there are gaming apps with gambling sub-apps. Now the NFL offers you gambling on your phone. The protection of anybody's morality is irrelevant in the presence of making money off people's immorality. I've said before, and I'm going to say again, I'm wondering when prostitution is going to be legalized. Because so many other sins have not only been legalized, they've become commonplace. Now, there's another problem with this that I want to get to in a minute, this onslaught of accessibility to evil, to sin. The NFL will help you gamble, and that's considered okay. But if you're online gambling, isn't there a chance young people could get involved? Absolutely. Should adults be involved? Absolutely not. But again, the point is protecting our young people. And when you give up on that, what do you think happens? You end up with some of the highest divorce rates the world's ever seen. You see the onset of depression much younger and younger and younger, as kids are having to deal with adult issues and adult addictions and adult concerns. And now we have the NFL helping them do it. What I want you to understand, not just about that sinfulness of sin, is there's a war of attrition that's going on here. In the avalanche of sin, what happens is small sins, single sins, are sacrificed. In an onset of anything or an onslaught of anything, it's the bigger ones that become the issue because we're getting it more and more and more, so we got to worry about the big stuff, and you don't sweat the small stuff. So in the midst of overwhelming sin, remember, there is an exit from the way that leads us to Christ. Every 20 feet, there's an exit. And every mile, there's a lane that ends. You have got to stay on task because the road is trying to get you off the road. In the midst of overwhelming sin, it seems petty to point to the least sins. It seems petty to say, that's a lie. It seems petty to say, hey, friend, we're gossiping. It seems petty to say, why are you taking the Lord's name in vain? Because look at all this stuff that's going on. That's just little stuff. Guys, sin is still sin. And all sin is sinful. Satan's purpose is not to make a sinner out of you. His purpose in getting you is to make you feel that sinlessness is not achievable, and that secondly, that it's not so sinful after all because I got bigger fish to fry. Guys, look at the things that culturally we're accepting that we wouldn't have dreamed of 20 or 30 years ago. We've gotten used to it. It seems needling or annoying to say, you shouldn't do that. And guys, what I want you to understand, I think sometimes faithfulness is found in the details, not in the big issues. If you're faithful in all things, this is how purity and chastity are undermined, is we give up what to us are the little things. The purpose of the avalanche of lies is not to convert one to deception, but to desensitize one to lies, thus obscuring the truth. My lie alarm didn't go off anymore because it's gone off so much, I've unplugged it. I've taken the batteries out because it just keeps hollering. And that's what our enemy is trying to do to you and me in this culture. He doesn't have a problem if you get on the path because he's got a lot of exits that he's going to present to you with the idea that you're going to leave the path for one of these exits, and many of them are small in the eyes of the world and even small in our eyes and very easy to exit from. And so he didn't get you by having you rebel against God. He got you because you stopped seeing how sinful sin is because of the avalanche of sin. And you became insensitive to the sinfulness of sin. Hebrews 12, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning the shame, sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, that you may not grow weary and lose heart. It's hard to keep fighting. It's hard to keep resisting. It's hard to constantly deal with the slings and arrows of the wily one. There is no new sin, but he's got multiplied amounts of arrows for the same sins. And technology is just right there to help him. And you've forgotten the word that encourages, addresses you as sons. My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline. Do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those that he loves, and he punishes everyone he accepts as his son. This is going to be hard. Don't stop. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on the definition of who Jesus is, how he lives, and live like that. And whatever is sinful, you will then respond to as sinful, regardless if you've had to respond to 100 other things that day. Because being like Jesus is so very important. Hannah Arendt was a sociologist, and she lived during the time of Second World War, and she studied how is it that people follow people like Hitler or Mussolini? How do people follow people like Marx, or on and on and on? And what she was trying to discover was, why do people believe lies? Notice what she said, and a little bit tough because she's writing as a sociologist. I'll explain it just a little bit. In an ever-changing, incomprehensible world, the masses had reached the point that they would, at the same time, believe everything and nothing. Think that everything was possible and nothing was true. The totalitarian mass leaders base their propaganda on the correct psychological assumption that under such conditions, one could make people believe the most fantastic statements one day and trust that if the next day they were given irrefutable proof of their falsehood, they would take refuge in cynicism. Instead of deserting the leaders who had lied to them, they would protest that they had known all along that the statement was a lie, and it would admire the leaders for their superior tactical cleverness. Why do people follow a Hitler, and when they find out he's lying, why do they keep following? And that's what she was describing. Because they believe that everything is possible, but everything's a lie. You see, what happens when everything's a lie is that you are led by lies. And you get used to being led by lies. Here's a traditional lane change. One choice. You either ride through town or you don't. You either turn left at the crossroads or you don't. Jeremiah talked about a crossroads. What we have now is you're heading on the road trying to stay the straight course. The way it used to be, every once in a while you would come across an exit. And they would be far apart. And the exit is an enticement, a temptation. And there will always be signs of good things to eat. There will always be signs you can fill up your car. You could come over here and see the world's largest ball of string or whatever. All kinds of enticements to lead the road. Because we're getting you away from your destination. We're getting you from your destination to our destination. We want you to come visit our business. We want you to come visit our restaurant. We don't care what your destination is. Your achieving your destination prevents us from achieving ours. So very beautiful signs, very enticing signs. And that's the way Satan works with sin. But relatively easily, just stay in the middle lane, ignore the signs, you're going to make your destination. Now, it's exits every few feet, and every so often the lane is taken away. You have got to be conscious. You have got to be aware. You've got to be proactive. You can't be reactive. You can't be passive. Because on the road, there are many dangers. And Satan is always there to pull you away with whatever. And it doesn't matter to him what gets you to exit the road. It doesn't matter if it's your pursuit of knowledge or education or work or wealth or what. It doesn't matter. And the great thing about his perspective is he believes I can take a good thing and make it evil for you. I can take the love for your family and make it your God. I can take the love of your career and make it your purpose. And there's nothing wrong with a career. There's nothing wrong with family. But they can become idolatry. And if I get you to exit the road, that's all I'm trying to do. I don't care what you exit for. I'm going to offer you everything under the sun. And whatever captures you, I don't care if it's sinful in and of itself or good in and of itself. If I can use it to get you off the road of the higher calling, access to God through Christ Jesus, I don't care. As long as I get you off the road. Then you'll be handed over to be persecuted, put to death. You'll be hated by all nations because of me. And at that time, many will turn away from the faith and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. Because of the increase in wickedness. Wickedness hasn't changed. Access to it has increased. And the result of that is not, he's saying vigilance. He's not saying so people are going to be more on guard. This is just the opposite. Because of that. Because of the increase to access to wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. And he who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. When the end comes, where will you be? When the end of your life comes, when the end of your pursuit comes, when the end of time comes, where will you be? Brothers and sisters, the attacks on your purity, on your spirituality are unrelenting. And right now, I guarantee you, I don't know what it is, I'm not a prophet or a son of a prophet. But right now, in some boardroom, on some engineer's drawing board, ideas are being put together. They're going to decimate the morality of so many people. It's not the goal necessarily. The goal is to make money. The goal is to make life easier. And I'm telling you, new technology is constantly being created to destroy. As we've talked about before, I bet very rarely was it ever discussed when this was created. I wonder how many people would die on the highway because of this. I wonder how many marriages will end because of this. I wonder how many folks will end up addicted because of this. And if those questions were asked, obviously they were ignored because the technology pressed on. And you have in your pocket access to sin and access to good that the world has never, ever seen before. This is the basis of a lane ending. And if that's the lane that you're in, be forewarned, because your love is growing Oh. Where are you in your walk? Where are you in the way? Where are you in the pursuit of godliness, godlikeness? Do you need to make a change in the road you're on? If you've left for the exit, you can come back. You can get back on the road. You can be extra vigilant from this point on and ensure that you stay on the road. Eyes on the prize, not on the exit signs. Can we help you with your walk? Can we help you find the way? If there's any way that we can do that today, we invite you. Make that known. Men at the back, men at the front. Let's talk. Come as we stand and sing, would you?